Welcome, everybody. This is Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour International. And I'm delighted today to be hosting another identity conversation. And I have with me Julie Pinkerton. And Julie is based up in Nashville, Tennessee, or in sort of probably more of a country area or rural side of Nashville. And Julie is the CEO and founder of Evozen, and just going through a product launch of a business called or a product called Client First. So I think it's exciting days ahead, Julie.
Very much so. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. It's great to spend time with you. So maybe just for our listeners' benefit, if you can give me a bit of background on your life and your journey through the financial services industry to building Evozen as a business.
Absolutely. Started back in the business right out of college, and started with a little company in Waco, Texas, where literally we did everything. It was a small enough company that I stuffed commission checks. We actually sent brochures to the printer, back in the day. And then I had a retail insurance practice for a few years. Had an opportunity to come into the brokerage world and did that for a few years. And then my last position was with a major carrier on the West Coast. And I was there for almost 20 years, leading a wonderful team that was working with financial advisors and working with them on practice management ideas, sales ideas, and helping them to be able to take care of their clients a little bit more fully. And then about 4 years ago, left the company because I realized that there was a gap in the industry that I could recognize. And one of those was that, women and minorities, I'd heard a fact that despite diversity and inclusion efforts, it had been over a decade and the number of women in the business was still stuck at exactly the same number. And, your first thought is you think somebody ought to do something about that. Yeah. And then you start realizing that, oops, maybe that somebody's supposed to be you. And so I decided to always had a plan B if I wanted to do something different. And so I do that instead of New Year's resolutions. So I had just completed it. And that's what was the beginning of Evozen.
So what was the pivotal moment? I think it was Pacific Life that you'd worked with for 20 years. So, and in the practice management role, you understood insurance, financial advisors. But what do you think is really the pivotal moment that got you to jump out? Do you think it's just seeing the fact that there weren't enough women advisors in the industry and we need to get more, which we clearly do?
It's interesting. There actually is a very specific incident that made me realize that this is something that really needed to be done. I had attended a conference that was for women financial advisors, and there was a firm there that did philanthropic planning, and it was an amazing presentation. The people, the advisors that are at this firm really are top of their game. And it was interesting, though, because the plan ended up not being implemented for the simple fact that there was still the age-old controversy between fee and commission products. And at the end of the day, I realized that I'm very much a centrist. I'm able to see multiple points of view. And as a result of that, I realized that I could build the bridge that would have allowed that client to have been served that little bit better, simply by people in the industry having a opportunity to see that everything has a place if it's done in the right way. And this is a firm that, like I say, top of their game. And I really believe that, if they had simply been aware, if there had been an opportunity for them to be aware that there was another solution out there, that they would have also been able to have that client in their roster too.
So that's the firm offering the philanthropic product.
Correct.
That was missing a beat on how to sell it, because some advisors were fee-based and some were more product-orientated or just taking a commission.
Absolutely. And it was at that moment that I realized that all of the thoughts that I had been thinking in terms of how to be able to bridge these disparate parties in the industry to be able to put the client's needs front and center really came to bear.
So you think you could have helped that philanthropic firm or product firm rejig its product for?
I think they would have been able to continue doing what they clearly were so very good at,
Yeah.
but at the same time be able to bring in a new team partner that would have allowed them to be able to solve that one problem that they were struggling with to solve on a fee basis.
So how does that connect to then starting Evozen and bringing it to life and helping advisors who have already got an existing business transition out or create their transition plan out and bringing in minorities. So you've had one pivotal moment. You've had your experience in Pacific Life in practice management where you've seen everything.
Yes.
So just help connect the dots on that for everybody.
Absolutely.
This is a very transformative moment, really.
It is, and thank you. I appreciate that. What I was able to see very clearly that day was that we needed to reconfigure the financial community. We all know that centers of influence are very, very valuable. They are the most reliable source of being able to get good clients, new clients, and that growth is so important for mature advisors to be able to have firms at their highest possible valuation when they're ready to exit. But at the same time, it can sometimes be very challenging for new advisors, next generation, women, minorities, to be able to come in and be able to hit that mark as quickly as they need to. And so Evozen became that community that we're building here from the ground up, totally from a female perspective, to be able to enable that community to happen. And
so in a way,
so
in a way, what you're doing is with Evozen and Client First, which is the product, is providing the transition pathway in for the female or the minority into an existing business.
Correct.
Where there's a founder or an owner who perhaps would want to retire or expand that business
Yes.
or both. But you're providing that transition pathway in, and in a way a transition pathway out.
Correct. Yep. The comings and goings of the advisors are very important in our business, and this is a path to be able to help both of those, the entry and the exit to be smoother for both, as well as to be able for the firm to be able to grow in between. Too many times advisors are so caught up in handling regulation, handling servicing existing clients, handling paperwork, that they have a hard time getting to these growth activities. And this creates a seamless, literally we walk beside them down the road to be able to help them be able to get to that growth aspect.
So Julie, there's a part of this of getting the advisor who's the owner in a way in a growth mindset, but also putting him or her in, and probably a lot of hims into a place to sell.
Yes.
And to get what I would call exit ready.
Yes.
And then it's getting the female into the practice, and for him to accept that the female or the minority is going to do a great job with their existing clients and help bring in new ones.
Absolutely. And to be able to help them, not only that they will do a great job, but that they will be able to attract clients that perhaps they're not able to themselves. Maybe that helps them create a multi-generational practice that they've been very much wanting to do for a long time.
Well, it's sort of a multi-channel practice as well, and a multi-generational practice. And I suppose, a lot of the hims out there would be silly to not want to take this on, given how many women these days are inheritors, holding senior positions in careers. We've got people in all sorts of minorities who've got a stronger voice now. When it comes with that more money, it's sort of a no-brainer, isn't it?
It is. And it's amazing because the amount of money that women are controlling these days is the kind of client that these men have been looking for. They've been fighting over the same 15% of the market, not realizing that 85% of the market's out there for the person who's, willing to recognize it, just literally recognize it.
So is it just the statistic, that 15% statistic, that's driven you this way, and the fact that, over a 10-year period, you didn't see more women as a percentage getting into the business? Is it really just that, or is there also something else within you as to what you've seen as to how service should be delivered, what would make a better practice? Because I've got to think that this would make a better practice to have a broader channel of clients.
It does. It makes from all the research that we did in the very beginning, it not only makes a better practice, but it also it reorients the practice back to what most financial advisors wanted to be when they first got into the business, truly helping people and being able to sit down and talk with them, which is all clients want. They want to be heard, and they want to be, they want their wishes to be known, and they're seeking out the professional advice to be able to make that happen. And, they're running up against these very harried advisors, and they simply want to be heard.
Do you think there's also an issue in here that, the industry has progressed along a path? A lot of the advisors that have done pretty well in the industry, serving that 15%, their average age is in their mid-50s, late 50s, 60s, somewhere in that territory. They've learned the business a certain way. Whereas in today's world, where people are looking for more meaning, diversity is more important. It's not just about money. There's quality of life discussions, as I said, meaning.
Yes.
That the newer generation are better equipped to have those conversations with the clients.
You're exactly right on everything you just said. People are living longer, and as a result, that's changing so much out in the world. Longevity is a huge topic, and I think that COVID really brought home some of these aspects, though, because all of a sudden people had an opportunity to really sit back and reconsider an awful lot of things in their life, where they live, who they interact with, how are they spending their time? Are they able to spend it with family? And advisors need to understand that their clients are coming back into their office with a completely different mindset. When those offices all resume, there's a lot of things that they're going to want to address, and this will help them be prepared to do so.
Also, I think age is an important criterion in here, not just the diversity issues, but age is important for advisors to understand. You need someone younger in your business, because if all your clients are the same age as you, they're your golfing buddies and friends from other careers and your prior years of networking, et cetera, you really want someone that's younger than you. Like for me, when I look at having an estate planning attorney or an accountant, I want someone younger than me so that they're able to help my children out.
Right.
I don't want to be succeeded by my, I want to be succeeded by my professional advisors. I don't want to succeed them. And I think that's an important thing here. But it's also just, I think it's such a personal touch industry, isn't it? That the advisor's got to be able to have the conversations. And I think women are very good at having these more emotional discussions, and money is an emotional topic.
It very much is so. And especially when you start getting into longevity, you also get into things like healthcare. And senior healthcare and elder care is a very challenging topic to begin with. And having just gone through that in our family with my mother-in-law and all of the complications that came from COVID, these are conversations that people have got to be able to have. And you're correct that sometimes the next generation is a little bit more attuned to that conversation.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons, and we'll get into financial DNA. One of the reasons that I built financial DNA many years ago, I was 34 when I started with it, was to, and in the wealth management business, I was a few years into it, was to help clients become more self-empowered. I wanted the client to understand themselves better. I wanted to be able to understand the client better and know where to ask the questions, what was really driving them, what their motivations were, how they'd make decisions under pressure. That was a big motivator for me. I had it at the time. I had a team of 10 or 12 in the office. Which one of the teams, some of them were, qualified CFPs in their own right, would be better to work with which client. That was important to me because, when I worked with the clients, that they're all of all levels. There was the up and coming executive right through to the billionaire. They needed a different experience and they needed a different team. And I sort of figured out I might be good with one of the husband or wife, but I wouldn't be good with both. And having a team would help me with that connection. That was a big thing for me. But it was around, Julie, it was around the empowerment. Mm-hmm. But I'm interested that, when you connected to DNA behavior and completing financial DNA, how did you find it for you? How did you find the experience of it for you and what it told about you?
Absolutely. It's interesting because I first found out about you through a referral. A woman named Debbie Gordon, we were talking about the platform that I was building. And she said, I know something that would really make a good fit in here. And I immediately loved it just because I knew that it was built upon that relationship. Yeah. And it was almost like it got started from the perfect scenario, because it was, how do we connect better? How do we communicate better? How do we reach people better? And I was in love with the product and I hadn't even seen it yet at that point. So the concept itself, really resonates with me. But then when I, started working with your team and working with Leon and actually took the profile myself, I was really amazed at how accurate it was and how much it spoke about things that sometimes you can't even put words to. But it gave you a tangible ability to be able to understand why do you relate to somebody better, different? Why do you relate to money better or different? How do you relate within all kinds of roles? And it made it clear. It's just like that roadmap.
But for you as now, and you're in an initiator style, just for our listeners to understand, an initiator style, what I call quite take charge. In other words, you like to lead, Julie, which I think is, a trademark of your career, but you're also a trailblazer, what we call a pioneer. And, you love a goal. And I think within that, you love a challenge. And you're taking on something that's big in this industry. You're tackling what is one of the biggest industry issues head on. So, one, congratulations for doing that. But
thank you.
How did you see your strengths when you got the report back and it said some of these things? How did it speak to you in that sense of that you're taking on this industry?
I liked it because it reaffirmed to me that I was working from a mindset that could take on the problem the way I hoped to. And I think sometimes that, I don't know if I even know how to convey that properly, because it was, when you recognize that a challenge is this large And, as an entrepreneur, you're first of all trying to get it down to something that people can understand. And sometimes even that's challenging because the problem is so large.
Yeah.
I actually had one entrepreneur say, well, if it's that big of a problem, shouldn't it have been solved by now? And I said, the profile helped me understand that I am able to see that it still exists out there. Some people don't necessarily recognize that some of those issues exist. Now I think we do. I think our society as a whole recognizes that better than it did 5 years ago 4 or 5 years ago. And but at the time it was wonderful validation to me that I am the right person to be able to tackle this. And I hope, certainly that the vision that I have, that my style says that I'm, the right person to be able to do, can actually tackle this and make an impact on it. I really wanted to make that impact.
Yeah, because I think one of the things is that, even sometimes the reports don't always necessarily say something completely new, but it's very illuminating in the sense of it puts that clarity there. That then gives you the confidence to go ahead with it. It's like when I first went through all this and figured out at the end of the day who I was, similar to you. I'm an initiator, extremely pioneering, driven, that if I was going to go on this journey of building DNA behavior out, it was not going to be a short journey, and I needed to be in there for the long term. There was going to be all sorts of trials and tribulations and mistakes made, and I was going to hack my way through the forest. But sure as hell, I was going to get there.
Yes.
And you don't always know how that will transpire. Things will happen, yes. But the industry absolutely needs you to do this. But I think there's an underlying part here too, which is your passion for it.
Yes.
And I think there must be a passion there, Julie, for you with. You're a female leader, so that's probably, is said, but also just for generally speaking, the minorities, to bring them along on this journey and create a space for them to play the game.
It's interesting because an exercise that I was asked to do many years ago was to be able to look at the end of your life and be able to work backwards as to what if whatever is on your tombstone, are you living a life that will get you to that? And for me, it was very important that whatever was on my tombstone was that, that somebody's life was better having known me. And that's what I'm, for the industry. The industry has given me a really wonderful life. I've traveled the world. I've met some amazing people. I do feel like I've helped others, and I know that the knowledge has helped my family, in the various things that are important to us. And I want to give something back for that because the industry has done that for me, and I do want to be able to give back. And I'm hoping that that this path is able to do it in a way that does make it easier for a multiple of personalities to thrive, that it's not just one style. I grew up in that style, and I'm from Texas, so I understand we have a saying there, we dance with those who brung us. I'm very grateful for the men in my career that have made such a difference and allowed me to have the success that I've enjoyed. But I've also met some amazing women and some amazing, women of color, men of color who haven't been able to be seen. And I know that just sometimes knowing that there's other options out there and getting to actually see people for who they are and to be heard is such an invaluable means to that goal.
So in a way, what you're doing is you're enabling diversity to thrive or succeed in financial services.
That's what I hope. Yes.
That's the bigger game here, is to enable diversity to thrive in financial services. And in that way, you'll impact the outgoing advisor that probably hasn't experienced diversity in their business or with their client base, but you know what, they can go proud and hopefully wealthier, but they would at least go also with a lot of pride, knowing that they themselves have helped the industry and created a pathway for many more to get the service. And you're allowing these women and minorities to get into a business that may not be that easy for them to get into. To go into a practice and start up. It's not, starting one from scratch is not an easy thing to do. It's easier probably to go into something that's already there. The house is a bit warm and the restaurant's a bit full.
Yes.
And make it fuller and expand it out. And you're providing that vehicle, but really the bigger why in here is enabling the diversity to thrive.
You said it beautifully. Thank you.
And then with your determination, you're going to make it happen.
Absolutely. And you're helping me by giving me a bigger machete.
Yeah, and then it's like all these things. It's about the process. It's about making it real, because it's one thing to have a few words on the page, but actually, how do you make it real and tangible? And that's where it seems like the railway track that you're providing to help the existing advisor get ready,
yes, to
get out of the business. That should improve every process and procedure in their business.
That's what I'm hoping for.
At the end of the day, yeah, and at the end of the day, make it also tangible for the person coming in.
Correct. Yep. You've nailed it.
Yeah. Well, but this is, I think this is very exciting, but it does take someone with a lot of drive. And you're right. Your style is probably similar to a lot of advisors in the industry, initiators. I did a research study some years ago. 70% of the founders of financial services businesses, startup RIAs, brokerages, whatnot, were similar to you and me. I'm an initiator too, but the industry needs so much more than that.
Absolutely.
Particularly if we're going to build trust, in the industry, and as you said before, build relationships.
Well, and clients want to be heard, but advisors also, they want to have significance too, and
yes,
that's what I'm hoping is that they can understand that this community really is something designed to be able to help them have, to extract the very best out of everything they're doing.
And that's why I'm so big on the identity movement right now, that, if we can help every advisor find their identity, and that's the outgoing advisor and the incoming,
yes, then
they'll be able to stand out in the crowd and lead the industry, and we do it from a diversity perspective, and it'll be brilliant.
Well, and I'm also big on the whole concept of being a lifelong learner, and one of the best things that we can learn is to learn more about ourselves. And so that's why when as we're rolling this out, we're rolling it out in tiers so that people are taking full advantage of what each tier is designed to be able to bring to them. And that first tier is obviously filling the community that we want to be able to have the advisors, self-select themselves into the community. But part of that, initial tier is that they're getting to do this behavioral analysis on themselves. And for them to understand themselves and how they are relating is so eye-opening, because it can truly make a difference overnight for them as to how they're relating and communicating with not only their clients, but also their staff and others.
Because particularly if the outgoing advisor can understand and appreciate that, if they know their clients at this level and it's documented, because we provide a report, it's there, it stays in the system forever. They can bring the right people onto the team, the right inbound advisor, the right team to serve the clients.
Yep.
Clients feel understood, ask them some good questions each year, and they'll stay with you forever.
Absolutely.
That creates a value and an experience for everybody and significance.
And it's interesting because advisors sometimes struggle with the fees that they're charging because they're concerned about, are they giving enough value to their client to justify their fees? And when a client feels heard, they're going to feel that value and they're going to have a greater level of trust. And when they have that greater level of trust, they're going to start telling that advisor things they might not have shared with them otherwise that can have a keen difference in their outcomes.
Absolutely. So Julie, as we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today? Any other business tips?
Yes, the other part that is occurring in our tier one is that they have the ability to connect to other advisors on the basis of their behavioral analysis and the style that they are. So for instance, in order to be able to help a client, sometimes you may need to, bring in another team partner, and that team partner, you may want them to have a very similar style to the client or similar style to themselves, since they know that's a successful relationship.
Yeah.
Or they may recognize that maybe they need to bring in somebody with a slightly different style to give a little bit different perspective. Or perhaps, as we were talking earlier, if you're working with a couple, you may have a husband and a wife or two partners who have very different personalities. And that can be a way to be able to, again, acknowledge that client, that you hear them and understand that sometimes another perspective gives them a better outcome.
Yeah, I think two sets of ears with the one client couple or the one family is going to do way better than one set of ears.
Absolutely.
That's trying to listen and write notes and it's got stuff running around in their head about the next question they're going to ask and what they're going to do. It all gets so much easier if we can do that. So, well done, Julie, on taking on our industry in the way you are. And diversity is huge, and if we can enable greater diversity in the industry and people to be proud of it, whether they're exiting the industry and entering the industry, it's fantastic, and you're going to succeed.
Thank you very much, Hugh. I really appreciate that.
All right, thanks for spending time with me.